Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Tevis-Finn recording from Franklin. Welcome to our new unit on World War II, opening up with this first screencast on American neutrality with a question mark. I'd like you guys to turn to your guided notes for American neutrality, and I have a few questions before we get into taking down some notes. So my first question is, what has been America's foreign policy up to this point in history? So just a little review. You guys can put down, George Washington's advice we try to hold to for quite a while to steer clear of permanent alliances. That follows us. You can put down certainly for World War I, we tried to remain isolationist. It lasted 3 of the 4 years for the war. Pictured there is the Sussex ship that the Germans sank, leading to the Sussex Pledge. So question number 2, what do you guys think it'll take for the U.S. to change its isolationist position? So one hint perhaps is this picture I included on our screencast introduction to World War II. You guys might know what that's from. And for number 3, I'd like you guys to put down which 3 countries start to really increase their aggression towards smaller countries. So the rise of militarism and nationalism is seen here in Germany as they invade Czechoslovakia, here in Japan as they invade and occupy China, and over here in the rise of the fascist dictator Mussolini in Italy. So know those 3. And so question 4 I have for you is, how does the U.S. respond to these acts of aggression? Basically, we don't do anything directly, we just pass neutrality laws. So let's get right down to that first bullet. The first set of Neutrality Acts, you guys, was between 1937 and 1938. You guys should know that we made it illegal to sell any arms to countries at war. Pictured here is FDR in his address to the nation about these Neutrality Acts. I'd like you guys to think about why we're passing this legislation in the late 1930s while other countries are raping and pillaging. Well, think back to World War I and how we got involved by selling arms to France and Great Britain, and there's a major belief that this had got us into World War I, crossing the Atlantic and German submarines sinking our merchant ships. So we're really trying not to repeat the past, I think, with these Neutrality Acts. Alright guys, under your second bullet there, the second set of Neutrality Acts came in 1939, and what basically they said is, all non-military supplies had to be cash and carry, and here's the advertisement from the era. So what does cash and carry mean? It means like Great Britain, right? They need some of our supplies. Maybe it's just food, but they have to send their own ships to the U.S. They have to pick up these supplies, pay in cash, and then transport those goods back to Europe. So no loans. We didn't want any repeated mistakes from World War I. Remember the Great Recession that came about, so we're really trying to avoid, again, mistakes of the past. Alright, the third bullet, guys, destroyers for bases deal. So pictured here is FDR and Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Great Britain. And so what they do, guys, is they try to get around the neutrality laws by doing this deal. And the exchange is, you guys can see the headline over here, is Great Britain gets 50 of our old destroyers, and then we get the right to build bases on their territories, Newfoundland, Bermuda, and the Caribbean, to name a few. So here are the destroyers that were traded to Great Britain in this deal. So let's begin to kind of think about how close we're getting to actually getting involved in the war. So there is a debate at this time in America called the isolationist debate, and there's 2 sides. One side says we must repeal the Neutrality Acts. We need to show our support for the Allies. We're against what Germany is doing, and we must act now. The other side forms this group called America First. The America First Committee, here's a picture of Charles Lindbergh, famous aviator, in one of their rallies. And here is some of their propaganda, Save Our Sons, SOS. So it just shows, I'd like you guys to make sure you understand that there was not 100% support for the war at this time. Next bullet, what is the Lend-Lease Act? Again, we're getting closer, guys. We're kind of putting our feet in the water, I would say. So what this means is Great Britain runs out of money. They're the ones financing this war against Germany. And so they are broke. And so FDR agrees to remove the cash-only policy from his Neutrality Act. So he allows the U.S. to lend or lease, right, for them to borrow the money, especially in weaponry, to any country that's vital in the fight to save democracy and protect our interests. You can see a little record from the U.S. government here, and you can certainly see how we loaned a lot in this munitions department here. Part of this Lend-Lease Act bullet, I want you guys to put down FDR's quote. For he saw our role in World War II to be a great arsenal for democracy. So think of an arsenal as all of these weapons and things to help the Allies win the war against Germany. Here you can see women in the munitions factories in World War II, and here's some great propaganda showing how we are going to save democracy by providing the weapons, not the soldiers. So let's move on to our relationship with Japan. And so what happens in the beginning of the 1940s is an embargo. And it's important to note under this bullet that Japan really depended on us. They traded with the United States for their iron and steel, and 80% of their oil came from the United States. So we do have some leverage, because in July 1940, Congress gives FDR the power to restrict the sale of these materials. They're called strategic materials for war. So Japan no longer can trade with the U.S. for these materials. And what this is, guys, is an economic way to respond to their human rights violations in China. Right? We can't get involved in the war, but we can certainly put on this economic pressure. I have pictures to show you here, and believe it or not, I had to censor these. If you guys want, you're welcome to look at what Japan did to China. It is called the Nanking Massacre, or sometimes called the raping of Nanking. This just shows, the military takeover, but what they did to children, I couldn't put it on. So anyway, I just wanted you guys to know that it's beyond words. All right, so you want to put down for the U.S. bullet, guys. The U.S. helps China during this time period by sending supplies, and so Japan knows our position and our disapproval. This might be out of order, but I want to make sure you guys know, why did Japan invade China? I want you guys to note that the Great Depression was not just in the United States. Okay, so Japan could not feed its people anymore, and their plan was to find food in territories of China. One particular is Manchuria, which is closest to them in their borders. And so this bullet is out of order, but I want to make sure you guys know that how does Japan respond to the embargo? They join up with the Axis powers. Here's a picture of, in 1940, Japan, Italy, and Germany signing this pact. So that is how economic pressure actually can lead to military decisions. All right, so moving on to the next bullet, the SS St. Louis. I want to make sure you guys know I made a small typo on the number. It's over 900 Jews. It's actually 930 Jewish refugees. They flee Hamburg, Germany, from Hitler. They aboard this ship and they head for Cuba. When they get to Cuba, they're not even allowed to disembark. So they're denied entrance, and they try to go to the United States, and they also are blocked. And so there's a lot of background to this story. For certainly many people in the United States tried to help the Jews escape Germany. I don't know if you guys can understand this, but our immigration policies were such that our unemployment was out of control at this time, and it was very difficult to change the laws. This, of course, is no excuse, for these Jews are sent back, and they're sent back to places like Belgium, Holland. Perhaps they became part of Hitler's final solution. And the last two bullets are on the Atlantic Charter. So what is this? It's an agreement between Churchill, pictured here, and FDR. And so, it's an interesting time to be planning out. What they're doing is planning out, after the war, what the world will look like and how they want to plan it to be this idealistic, democratic place. At this time, German U-boats, are heading for our shores. So, what is this? I'm going to have you guys list out the terms, but before I move on, I want you guys to remember that FDR was a polio victim, and he couldn't walk. But remember, he didn't want to be pictured as weak, so he would not be photographed in his wheelchair. You can see here how he has his cane. So again, think about the political pressure he was under to appear strong to the world. So here are the terms that FDR and Churchill outlined for the world for after World War II. And remember, the timing of it is interesting because it's at the very beginning of the war. So this is the last thing I want you guys to put down, that last bullet for the terms. The U.S. and Great Britain agreed to not expand, their territories. They then put down that no territorial changes would be done against wishes of the people. Respect people's rights to choose their own government. All nations should have access to trade and raw materials. Improved labor standards and economic advances are vital. Vital to world peace, I think they're saying there. They hope people will be free from want and from fear. Everyone should be able to freely travel the high seas. And last, all nations must abandon the use of force. Disarmament is necessary after the war. Alright everyone, I am wrapping up. This is Mrs. Tevis-Finn signing off from Franklin. I will see you all on Block Day. Have a great night.